Well, welcome back to our audience. Thanks for joining us once again. This is Derek Strauss, and I'm with Mahmoud Yassin, and we are talking about all things data management. In segment one, we spoke about the data quality and data governance aspects. In segment two, we talked about platforms. And now in segment three, we want to turn our attention to strategy and roadmap and the whole aspect of business value. And so I want to kick off this segment by just a general kind of question around business value goals that can be used to drive a data and analytics strategy. Mahmoud, in your experience, what have been like maybe the top three business value goals that you've experienced just across the various organizations that you've worked in, where you've seen people really successfully distill, the business value goals that we're going after?
Yeah. I think first one would be for related to the customer, right? So we exist because we want to serve a customer. We either serving or being the customer, right? It really depends. But let's say at the end of the game, what have you done to enhance the customer experience, make it more personal, make it more related to him or her, to their based on their, let's say, past history with you, whether it's banking transactions or bookings or whatever, how or what how can you measure that? I think that's really important. And of course the goal here is to have a better, let's say, refined, if you're talking about a search, for example, a proper recommendation that's relevant to the customer. And it's really hard maybe for people to realize that the effect of data governance or data management in general in the far end of the customer, let's say, journey. But if you really enhance your data storage, making things retrievable faster, applying certain encryption techniques to your data so it is being secured, maybe applying on-fly transformations, or if you are, let's say, doing data quality, automated testing, all these stuff at the end, contributes to a better experience because customer would be confident in you. If there's no data leakage, that is a result of a hard work that has been done from a security team, from a CISO department or data management or data governance teams, et cetera, et cetera. So the final and the ultimate goal is to have a better customer experience, I would say. Second goal would be to have an informed decision making. And this is really critical, not just any decision making, because you can, garbage in, garbage out. If you report on poor quality data or ungoverned data that no one knows from where it comes, then you are really jeopardizing your business. We have the term that we call dark data, which is data that sits in your organization that no one owns and no one is aware from where it came and who did it, when, where, and all the W's that you can think of. And that is real thing. It's not, let's say, imaginary data. And I bet that in every organization you have that type of data. And imagine if you are reporting and doing decisions based on dark data, what the outcome would be. And there are tons of examples that that can prove that if you don't know what you are reporting and the data source and the owners and the stewards and so on, and even the terms and definition of the data, then you are leaving your analytics and your decision making to guessing, and guessing with data is not always good, I would say.
Yeah.
And the third goal will always be for me operational efficiency and cost reduction, because data is costly, right? So whether it's an analytics or data, in the operational side and data governance and data management, a lot of tooling, initiatives, platforming, etc. So how can you use your data efficiently? How can you use your metadata of your data to calculate or to choose the best solution that fits your organization, not per se the most famous one? because you need to be practical and you need to choose what fits your use case rather than saying, for example, I am using X technology because that is everyone is using it. That's not, proven to be the best option. So enhance customer experience, operational efficiency, and cost reduction, and definitely informed decision making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good ones. What I've always found is, if I turn the clock back, a couple of decades, when people were trying to focus on data strategy, often they would talk about, improve our profits by X percentage or whatever. And I've always found that organizations that took that kind of generic, high level, non-specific kind of approach, that they were never really able to measure it and prove it. And so getting a lot more specific, like you mentioned, customer experience, that's different from profitability. And specifically helping in decision making in specific areas. When you take those three broad categories that you mentioned and you unpack them and take them down to a measurable level, you can actually measure it. Whereas if you just say improve profitability, when you
Yeah,
try and measure it, you get back to very kind of general kind of statements, and you can't really link it to, we've done this and spent this and this and this money on the data management and analytics side, and therefore we've gained this profitability. People just that you can't make those connections.
true.
And so yeah, I really like the approach that you mentioned
And of
there.
course, we can make it specific, right? So,
Yeah,
what in the customer experience you want to enhance? Because also it can be
that's it.
seen as generic. But for example, I want to have, if let's say in our business, I want to have more bookings from that
Yeah.
customer. Or if I talk about a financial institute or a bank, I want to, let's say, have more mortgages. So from the moment that customer opts in for, like, I'm interested in getting a mortgage, have you managed to give that person the mortgage after whatever 1 or 2 months? And if the data that you are collecting or you are asking the customer about is not accurate or of poor quality, and then you are let's say you neglected let's say one of the answers around the income, then you are totally wasting your time, the agent's efforts and everything else and all the processes. And then to realize that you already know that the customer can pay your mortgage if you give them that money by just analyzing the data that you have, that can avoid a lot of things at the end. So we can define the KPIs, make them more specific,
Yes.
and then based on that you can measure day to day or per year or whatever the period, the different difference.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I really like the approach. I also like the fact that right at the outset, you're talking about data and analytics, because you're focusing on the decision making side of things as well. So that's so important to have that holistic view. Now, if we take the next kind of step along the strategy journey, a lot of people have contemplated what's the best way of doing strategies and roadmaps and so on, and what should be the scope of a strategy. Um, One of the things that always comes to mind for me is, I think it was Peter Drucker that said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So you can come up with a great strategy, but how do you make sure that it actually gets adopted? The things that you're trying to do are adopted, and the changes and the improvements actually are not just fleeting, but they're actually become part of the fabric of the organization going forward.
Yeah, I really, yeah, I think that's the hardest part. So you can have, the most fancy tooling and machinery and everything. Let's say a brand new car with all what you want, but if the driver, is not responsible or not well educated, then you know it can be a challenge. And culture indeed eats it, yeah, for breakfast, strategy for breakfast for sure. So focusing on the culture, I think what really worked out of my experience is that it's not like the amount of responsibilities and buzzwords that you throw to people, but more or less how you take them through the journey. Because sometimes we assume that people understand what we understand, but this is not it's not true. If you talk to a software engineer, they don't care about data governance. They don't care about data management. They just need to get things done. That's part of the job. Really rare finding that you see, let's say, a software engineer that cares about data governance and data management and so on. But that's normal. This is how, education has been going on, and we need to get things done regardless of what means what road you take. So I think continuous improvement in learning and showing in that learning the effect, like what we spoke in segment 1 and 2. If you show it to a developer or to an engineer that, for example, if you fail to do this test case, that would cost us this at the end, or the customer will have a not the proper experience, or even your CEO or your CTO will report on the wrong number, then they can realize that, oh yeah, okay, oh, I never thought of that. So maybe I should build a proper test case, and then back to the shift left kind of initiative that we spoke about, let's say in the first segment, and then that becomes part of the DNA. And once it becomes of the DNA, then you may need to do some refreshing now and then, thinking of I don't know, data cafes or data marketplaces or maybe data academy. You really need to have a learning and development team to keep data learning and development team to keep, let's say, the ball rolling, improving, maybe inviting external guests. It's really something that you need to continuously improve, because that's not something that we are born with. So it's not an ability. It's something that you need to get. So again, culture is the key challenge here, but also it's a great opportunity. If you tackle it, then you have, imagine an organization that's data aware, if we can say like that. That's a completely different ballgame, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's wonderful when you see organizations starting to adopt and you see them, reaping the benefits of that as well. And a couple of years later, you come back into the organization and you see that it's still
Yeah.
going. That's it's really cool.
Yeah.
That's what we're all trying to get to for sure. So here, I think that in segment 1, 2, and 3 now we've given our listeners a really good overall view of some of the key opportunities, some of the hurdles, and how to overcome some of those hurdles as well. So thanks for your insights on that. But as we draw this third segment to a close, if we could just step back for a moment and just take stock of everything we've discussed, and maybe end with a question, which is, what's the one key takeaway that you'd like to leave with our audience today?
Yeah. It's a difficult one, but I think the one that's advice that stands out for me is never compromise the metadata. So metadata is one of those key elements in, whether you know it or not, it's a key element in the success of your organization and your architecture, because it has great potentials that, if you know how to use it, it can help you a lot. So there are, let's say, four different types of metadata, and if you manage to bring them together, like for example, business metadata, technical metadata, operational metadata, and social metadata as defined by Gartner, that is really, really tons of opportunities there. So it can also help you in platform decisioning, in cloud migration, in analyzing data lineage, and so on and so forth. To give you a small example, let's say in one of my previous companies, what we did is we used the operational metadata of a business intelligence tool in order to know who's using what, where, and why. And by analyzing and getting all this metadata of that business intelligence tools, we realized that we have deployed like 50% of what's deployed is useless because no one is using it, though it is running every day, though it is being stored, we pay money for it. And we took a decision to wipe it. And voila, 50% of the reporting is not needed, has been gone by just analyzing one source of operational metadata. And then for the other 50%, we analyze it and we mix it up with different types of metadata, let's say organizational or business metadata, like who is using this report, from which department, and why. And then you see certain, logical stuff, but also certain weird combinations. If a report is being developed for the CISO organization, why, for example, someone from, the business side is using it, and maybe it's for good reason, but you start thinking differently now. You can also think of, okay, now I have this top 5 or top 10 dashboard that everyone uses. Can I focus on them and build a proper optimization for them? Those hidden insights you will never realize if you don't analyze them. And the key point for it is metadata. And I think maybe in a different podcast, we can dedicate it for metadata because it's just huge potentials there.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a great area, and I think a lot of misunderstanding on what is metadata and how it
Yeah,
can be used.
true. Yeah,
So
there's this question is like data and metadata. Is metadata data? And
yeah, that's
it's
right.
interesting to talk about it as well one day.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we've even provided a hook for maybe another discussion series, and
Sure.
let's see how that one goes. But in the meantime, Mahmoud, thank you so much
Thanks
for
a lot.
joining us and providing some of the insights that you've gained across the various experiences you've had to date. And certainly, I wish you well in your endeavors at booking.com. I'm sure it's going to go from good to great there with your direction. And so, once again, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot. I really enjoyed the discussion, and I really look forward to the next one. And thanks for the audience. See you. Bye bye.